Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me on another episode of the Estrella Podcast. My name is Danielle Miranda, and before I get started in introducing today's guest, if you would like to learn more about the Estrella platform, please visit estrella.chat. You'll be able to put in your information and get all the updates that are happening with the platform that will be launching very soon. Now, for today's wonderful guests, I have the absolute pleasure of introducing psychic medium Paul Cissell. Hi, Paul. How are you today?
Hi, Danny. I'm very well, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me onto the podcast.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. Thank you for being a guest.
No, all my pleasure.
Okay, I always ask this when I hear a very unique accent. Where are you located?
So, if you want my precise location, I am right on the south coast of England. So, right outside my door is the sea. So, if I open my door, I'm not joking, the beach is literally just there. So,
So
you can't go
literally,
any further south in the UK than where I am.
so if you literally open your door, the water's right there.
Yeah, the water's right there. Yeah,
That is
that's how
incredible.
close I am to the beach.
Wow. So do you does that beach get warm, or is it more of like a colder weather living by
No,
water?
I mean, at the moment, here in the UK, a lot of people think the UK, they always think of it as being foggy or cloudy, always raining. We've just had a few months of just wall to wall sunshine.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's a very warm day here today. Lots of people are out in the water. So, and the temperature here in the water does get up, to sometimes up to 25. So, it's very warm to go swimming in.
That's wonderful. It sounds so nice. I would like to ask. I've had a pretty good, so amazing.
Sorry,
And
you.
now that
Sorry,
I'm
Danny,
interviewing you, and you
you just
too are a
broken up
psychic
there.
medium. Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. It's settled. Yeah, you just froze and broke up there for a moment.
Okay, okay. I have interviewed quite a few psychic mediums. And now that I'm interviewing you and you too are a psychic medium, I would like to ask first and foremost, Paul, what separates how you do your psychic mediumship with your clients from other psychic mediums?
Well, we probably all have a similarity, and depending how we were maybe trained or we're all natural intuitives, but we all have our own unique way of working. I think that's what makes it special. For myself, as the medium, I'm the conduit for spirit communication. So I'm channeling loved ones, that people that have passed over, who can come through, that can pass on valuable information that can be recognized by the sitter. Once we've established those links, then the reading itself will open up. So if you're having a general reading with me, for example, once we've established your loved ones being there and that evidence to validate they're there, then they may come in and start to give life guidance. So giving information about your life as it is in the present moment. I always say that mediumship is about healing. So we will probably go into any healing aspects. And I also bring in intuitive coaching into my reading. So we start to look at a person's life. We start to look at the energetic blocks that may be stopping them from moving forward. And we try to find what's causing them, and we move through them.
Okay. If I may
So,
ask,
hmm,
the difference between a psychic and a psychic medium is that a psychic is able to channel, correct? And be
yeah,
able to
mm,
um, maybe see things in a way that the client can't see. But a medium is able to channel the non-living. Is that correct?
Yeah, so basically, to put it a slightly different way, if you are going to see a medium, someone who is classing themselves as mediumistic, you would expect a level of spirit communication, as in your loved ones, your family members, your ancestors, friends, whoever, that you can validate with the information that the medium is coming through with. So, mum, dad, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, these kind of things, cause of death, age, health conditions, all of these things that validate that person, preferably, hopefully their names as well, or at least their initials. Now, how I look at the term psychic, everybody sees it differently. So we all have a psychic ability. But I intend to say that this word psychic is kind of like the encyclopedia of all of this. So a lot of people can see that psychic is a lower vibration. I don't like to look at it. I feel that the word psychic incorporates everything because the general public are more
Mm.
familiar with that word. When you say psychic, I identify with that. Yeah, it may be that if you
Yeah.
say clairvoyant, not everybody identifies with it. Not everybody may identify with a medium as well. So
Right.
this is probably why, especially in the UK, the word psychic is used commonly because most people that aren't familiar with all the terminologies will identify. Yeah. So on my website it says psychic medium Paul Cissell, which means I am a medium in the first instance, but I will use varying psychic abilities such as ESP, remote viewing, forms of clairvoyance, other forms of channeling, um, in order to bring about transformation for my client.
Wonderful. I have an interesting question, Paul. As a psychic medium, and you may or may not know the answer to this, but when someone passes over, when their time is done in the flesh and they pass on,
Yeah.
is it fair to say that every single person that passes on comes back to speak to a family member? Or do some people pass on and they go to the next phase in life, or they, if that makes sense what I'm saying, like, does everybody come back to communicate with somebody that's still living?
No, no. I would say it like this. It's like you're using your cell. I'll use the American version rather than mobile in the UK. So cell, you pick up your cell, you go to call someone. You can't guarantee that that person that you're calling is going to pick up. Yeah.
Mm,
So
yes.
we have to understand the journey of the spirit once it is separated from the physical existence. Yeah.
Mm,
Um, was the death traumatic? So is that spirit needing to heal in some way? Does it need extra time
mm,
before it's ready to communicate? Is the spirit going, oh, do you know what? I've got away from the earth plane. I don't want to go back there. Don't want to go anywhere near it. Didn't like my family. Don't want to know them. Now you can call as much as you like. I'm not coming anywhere near you. And we never hear from them.
mm,
Just to give you an example, my when my grandfather passed over, my two aunties went to many mediums and spiritualist centers to try to get communication, and he never ever came through. Now,
mm,
I was only 4 years old when he passed over. 40 years after he had passed, he then came through for one of my students. And I
oh,
didn't know
wow.
who he was. And I phoned my mum up and she said, oh my God, she said, you've got my dad. She said, yeah, the person's got my dad. Gave the name, the evidence, everything. But 40 years after he passed, like I said, my aunties that were very open to all of this went to mediums, they went to spiritualist centers, meetings, and he never ever came through for them.
Mm,
So,
wow.
yeah, we don't really know. Once we've transitioned into spirit, we don't fully understand, or may not fully understand, what the individual spirit is then having to go through their process in the spirit world. They may be ready to transcend into higher realms. They may just need extra time. Some, as soon as they've gone over, they're, well, I want to reach out. I want to tell my family I'm here and I'm okay. And they're trying to place psychic connections onto our mind in the hope that we're going to pick up those connections and, we're going to seek out a medium.
Are there men and women, Paul, and possibly children that have passed on that never truly fully cross over?
Yeah, this is when we go into the realms of soul rescue. And it can be a very tricky one because when I'm teaching my students, I teach them that you've got to be comfortable with your own darkness to go into somebody else's darkness. In fact, this only happened last week where a lady who was actually in South Africa, she came over to see me, and her brother had gone over to the spirit world under traumatic circumstances. And she believed that her brother hadn't fully transcended into the spirit world, and none of the family would believe her. Well, he came through, and I could see that he hadn't fully transcended into spirit. And so, because she was open to the process, we was able to connect with another family member, which was I can't remember who that was exactly. I think it might have been a grandfatherly connection because our parents were still living. And once he came through with evidence as to who he was then, the three of us together, we was able to then help the young man fully pass into the light, if you like. But by then he had managed to tell his story. So there was lots of gaps in how he had passed that the family were unsure of, and he was now able to tell his story. And because he'd been able to tell his story, he was then happy to let go and then
I
transcend
see.
into the spirit world.
And you were able to relay that story to the family.
Yep. So through the sister who had come to see me, um, I was able to then, she was able to validate the things that I was saying, and then I was able to fill in some of the missing pieces for her. Because it was very kind of, he wasn't murdered, but something had happened to him in the way that he'd gone over. It was very mysterious circumstances. So, and the autopsy was inconclusive. And of course,
Wow.
he's been trying to reach out and tell his story to say, no, look, this is what happened. So he was able to show us what happened, and she could validate what he was telling us.
Yes. Now, when you're in a session, Paul, and you're working with clients, you're obviously channeling a very powerful energy with
Yeah.
being able to communicate with family members and friends and people that have passed on. How do you then, I don't know if it's necessarily saying cleanse yourself, or how do you separate yourself after a session from that connection?
So how I look at it is, again, this is how I teach my students. While that person is with you, they are the most important person in the whole world, even above your own family, for
Mm,
that duration, because you have to be able to disconnect from you in order to create the space for that spirit to come through and for you to be able to give to somebody that you don't know. Yeah. If you're in there with worrying about your problems, your family issues, and anything else that's going on there, you won't create enough space for that spirit to fully come in and have the conversation. Yeah.
yes.
Once that communication has finished, I then break the link. The spirit and myself already have an understanding that as they feel me tiring in the process, they'll step back, which they do. And at that point, I'll disconnect. And then once the client has gone through my door, I completely switch off to their reading. I don't think about it. I have no emotional connection to it whatsoever because these aren't my memories or my experiences. And then my mind completely lets go of all memory of that reading. So within probably, by the time, the client's walking out, I've completely forgotten the conversation anyway. I don't hold on to the information.
Mm. Have you ever had spirits come back around to you?
Yeah, if they do, I kind of, well, it's like anything. It's like, well, what do you want me to do now? What is it you want me to do now? Yeah, if you want to talk to your loved one again, go and place the psychic connection onto their mind. Tell them to come back. Don't come and pester
Yeah.
me. I'm not going to do nothing about it.
Right, right.
Yeah, so boundaries within this and strong boundaries are very, very important.
Yes, yes. What made you decide to bring the intuitive coaching aspect into your psychic mediumship?
Well, that kind of developed quite unexpectedly and naturally, because what I was finding was as people were I was finding I was gravitating to people, or people gravitated to me, sorry, from all walks of life. We normally believe that, it's women that might go for readings, not that isn't the case. I've had people, very senior people in the British Army that have come and had the readings. I've had assassins.
Mm,
So people along those lines, people who are very high up in very other forms of authority. And you were shocked when you go into their life. You don't know nothing about them when they're booking. And then you're discovering who now you have in front of you,
mm,
and you're realizing that really everybody at some point becomes traumatized or stuck or feels
mm,
that they are stuck, and they go up into their head. They start stressing about all of their problems and can't get back into their intuition to find a way forward. And
mm,
so, obviously, the way I work, it developed quite naturally. Then I then started to go into the coaching. So, for example, a lady yesterday, we started off with the mediumship, and then when she got the mediumship, I could see quite clearly that actually she really needed the intuitive coaching more.
mm,
And I went into then the coaching to work through the stuck energy, the toxic energy that was preventing her from, making clear choices that she
mm.
needed to make.
So
So,
you have
um,
no problem switching gears if you need to in the middle of a session.
yeah, I can. Yeah, I would just allow myself to be guided. In the first instance, so if I'm giving you, if you're my client and I'm giving you a reading, I will always say I know nothing about you. So we need some help from your loved ones. So we'll get your loved ones to come through. We'll get them to build up a story about um, them. Then give us an impression of your family. Then, obviously, we're going to go into you and your story. And then, as I'm discovering you and what's going on with you, do we just need to stay with the mediumship, or do I then need to go delve a little bit deeper because now I'm recognizing that you've got stuck energy, which has become toxic, and that's preventing you from moving on in life. And
Mm,
it might be that I now need to take you in a completely different way in order then to help you through the session.
yes. Are there any special practices or books that you read, for example, that allows you to sharpen your psychic mediumship? Do you ever find that you need to still have that continuing education?
Look, I always look at it this way. Every single reading for me is a learning tool.
Mm,
At the During the reading, I look back and go, right, that's I can see what I've misunderstood. Okay, right. So I always see every reading, or any session of any kind, as my learning tool,
mhm,
because a lot of people maybe their expectation is too high, and they expect the medium to be able to just come out with that all important proof. I have your mum here, and her name was, Audrey, and she died on the 5th of November, and this is how she died. And it isn't like that. It's telepathy. It's
Mm.
telepathy. It's mind to mind. And sometimes, as your mind is trying to translate the will of spirit, there will, and there always will be, a miscommunication somewhere along the line where your mind hasn't quite understood it. I kind of refer back to Jurassic Park, the very first Jurassic Park movie, where they didn't have all the DNA sequence to make the dinosaurs, so they
Hmm.
filled the gaps. And this is what our minds can do as the medium. We've got to be very careful, because our minds can sometimes try to fill the gaps from our own experiences.
What impact does nutrition and physical fitness play in psychic mediumship? Do they go hand in hand? Does it allow you to have better sessions with your clients?
Definitely. I mean, I'm not afraid to admit this. This year I turned 60, and I'm I feel healthier than I was maybe when I was 30. Very, very quick story. 3 years ago, I had a stroke, which actually should have killed me, but it didn't. I very quickly recovered from it. Um, but I had to have 6 scans in total, which I
Mm,
thought was a little bit excessive. But when I saw my stroke consultant, he said to me, "Do you know why I ordered so many scans for you?" And I said, "I've got no idea." And he said, "The reason is," he said, "because I believed that the first one they gave me belonged to somebody else. So I reordered it.
mm,
And then that came back strange. So I reordered it again. So I wanted to have a good half a dozen scans of your brain to look to see what was going on."
mm,
And he said, "This is what I've discovered, and now you can discover why I gave you so many scans." He says, "You've got a brain of a 24-year-old,
mm,
um, and of a 24-year-old." And he said, "Even at your age, with a healthy lifestyle," he said, "we should see scarring around the edge of the brain." And he said, "That gives me an indication as to your age from looking at that scarring." He said,
mm.
"You have none." And he said,
Wow.
that shouldn't be. He said, he said, "When I've seen scans of people your age who have lived healthy lifestyles, there is always scarring." He said, "You have none." He said, "So I put your brain scans at a 24-year-old."
Mm,
And so I'm a great believer in the power of the mind. I'm a great believer in self rejuvenation. I'm a great believer that what we do with our mind does affect our health and our overall well being. We can't be positive all the time. It's impossible, especially in a modern day world and in the Western Hemisphere. It's impossible to be positive. We all get peeved off at some time. Yeah, it happens, um, and the only way we can escape it, unless we go and be a Zen Buddhist monk in a monastery in Tibet somewhere and cut ourselves off as society. But if we learn how to control the mind and control our environment,
mhm.
we don't take on the, not disease, but the dis-ease that goes
Mm,
on around us, which causes
exactly.
disharmony and causes ill health. And so I'm a great believer. It takes a lot of hard work, but it is possible to self-heal. And I do believe that it is possible to self-rejuvenate as well. And
Yes.
I'm kind
Well,
of living proof of that a little bit.
let me just say, Paul, as I look at you, you look incredible. You don't look anywhere near 60.
Thank
So
you. Kind.
whatever you are doing and implementing in your life is definitely working.
Yeah.
And
And
I
look,
admire that.
thank you. And there is no strict diet here. There is no going to the gym. It is just having a healthy outlook on life.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm a
Yes.
great believer that that's what does it.
And I'll be honest, I don't know why this just came to me, but I would argue too that the reason why your mind is so healthy is because you do use psychic mediumship, which in a sense is exercising the brain to
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
to channel intuition, to
yeah,
practice love and
yeah,
forgiveness and
absolutely,
openness. And I don't think a lot of men and women out here understand that we have to exercise our mind. We
absolutely.
are desensitized with
Yeah,
our phones and our laptops and
yeah,
social media and all of these
yeah,
distractions that we're not exercising our minds. And so
yeah.
I would argue that that plays a part into why you have a very healthy mind.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're absolutely spot on in what you're saying, Danny. Because again, the analogies I give are that the mind is a processor.
Hmm.
As in any computer, laptop, your processors in a phone, computer, laptop, whatever. Um, you know, the device is only as good as the processor.
Yes,
But I do believe that the processor can be upgraded.
absolutely.
And
And
again, sorry, carry on, please.
if I may ask, Paul, how would one be able to upgrade their mind? How would they be able to upgrade that processor in their
Again,
mind?
that's good. That's going to be different for everybody. We've got to look at everyone. What might work for one person may not work for somebody else, because somebody else may come from deep trauma that they're carrying through childhood, and they've
Mhm.
never had the advantage to be able to heal or to be able to really get to grips with the trauma that they experienced.
Right,
um, and they've never had the opportunity for anyone to be around them that can show them a different way of thinking or being.
right,
um, and so the mind builds up this relationship with it, believes that that trauma is who we are and it defines us.
right.
um, and so it can be very hard because again, another analogy that I often give is we've got to look at it this way. You've just bought, let's say, a 1930s house, yeah? And
Mhm.
it's got very basic wiring in it, electrical wiring. And now
Yes.
you're trying to bring all these modern appliances in, yeah?
Right.
Um, and it's the fuse board is going to blow every time you plug something in because the wiring isn't able to cope with these appliances. So what do? We're going to have to strip out um, all the wiring
Mhm.
and put modern wiring in to cope with all of this extra, these extra brand new appliances that are going to be going in. Now we know
Yes.
that that is going to require an enormous lot of work and a lot of mess and a lot of upheaval, yeah,
Yes. Yes.
in order to do that. Um, and that can be quite overwhelming for some people to kind of
Yes.
go, oh my God, I've got to go through that in order for to be able to heal. And they can become overwhelmed and they start to shut down again.
Mhm. Mhm.
So again, this is what I'm saying. It can be very difficult, and we have to look at each individual person because I do believe that everyone can heal, but
Yes.
sometimes the mind is so hardwired because of personal circumstances. It can be very hard for an individual to then rewire the mind to be able to think differently about the life and the existence that they've got at this present moment.
Yes. It sounds like the first step for anybody is if you have any type of trauma or if you're struggling with letting go of your past, to focus on that. That's step one. You
Yeah,
got to learn to heal your trauma. You
yeah,
have to forgive yourself, forgive those that have hurt you. And that possibly opens up the door, right? To be able to now say, okay, now that that is set aside, now that I've let go of my past, I have forgiven, I've healed my trauma. Now I can start focusing on um, enlightenment
yeah,
and exercising my mind. And
yeah,
then that's when meditation may come into play,
yeah,
or,
yeah,
self-help books may come into play, or podcasts may come into play, good nutrition, physical fitness, things that you have already discussed.
Mm.
But I feel the only way for people to really get to a place like you are, for example, they have to be able to heal, like you said.
Really.
Um,
Yeah.
you cannot become enlightened, and like you even said, even be a Buddhist monk, for example, if you have not healed yourself.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
is very well said.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, very, very quickly, I had a very good friend that from childhood, she was born into um, a cult.
Mm,
And they, with the children from a young age as 3 years old, were being sexually assaulted, molested by the elders. And so from
mm,
3 years old, this was happening to her. She managed to and this was being allowed by her own parents.
mm,
Yeah. So that kind of trauma was there from 3 years of age. Yeah.
right.
And these things were happening to her. And as then obviously she became a young woman, obviously she carried that trauma around. She broke away from the circumstances that she was brought up into, but all of that pain she carried with her.
Right.
It took her 20 years to work through it.
Mm,
She did, and she completely transformed her life, completely transformed it. But it took her 20 years as an adult to work through it.
right.
So I always say to people, there is no easy process. You
Mm,
cannot rush this. If you
right.
truly want to heal in a physical, emotional, energetic, and into spirit, it takes time, and we have to be
Absolutely.
patient with ourselves.
Paul, you bring up such a good point with what you just said about how it is important that we are patient and take our time with healing. We are in an instant gratifying society.
Yeah,
So everything, whether it's with food, tech, any type of gadgets, appliance, everything's grab and go, quick,
yeah,
quick.
yeah,
So our attention span is shortened.
yeah,
Our level of patience is bare minimal or non-existent. And so you're right. We really need to practice patience in all aspects of our
yeah,
life because you're right. Healing, for example, could take 20 years.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
still things I'm still healing from, for example. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it took me 20 years to go through, my process.
yes,
We've got to be patient with ourselves because we always will have relapses within
yes,
any process, especially when it comes to our own healing and whatever form that takes.
yes. What is a powerful quote that you do your best to live by, that motivates you,
Ooh.
inspires you, that helps you to be a better person?
Ooh, now you've got me. You've really stumped me on that one. I have to admit, I don't feel that I've got one particular mantra that I would probably practice and focus on.
Okay.
Simply because I can't find one. If there was, it would be in the forefront of my mind. And you've completely stumped me on that one. Um, I just believe in being kind,
Mm-hmm.
but also having boundaries.
Yes.
I believe in, looking after yourself, but also, creating balance that sometimes we do need to pick up the pace. We do need to, maybe use technology. So having balance in our life, let's go with that. Let's go with that one is discovering balance within our lives is
Mm,
probably one of the most important aspects of the journey
mm.
because without that balance, we become unbalanced, and that's when things start to go wrong for us.
Oh, that's so well said. I had a colleague years ago tell me, the key to true peace
Mm,
and to really be awakened
yeah,
in such a overwhelming, distractive world that we live in
Yeah.
is to find balance. He
Yeah.
said, if you can do that, if you can figure out balance in everything you do, then you will have ultimately the peace that you so strongly desire.
Yeah,
So you were right.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And like my office is in a place called Portsmouth, which is about 4 miles away across the water there. And obviously, on a daily basis, I'm embedded in other people's problems.
Mm,
And so obviously I can take up no matter how well I disconnect from it, I can still absorb the residual energy from my day. So
yes.
the world that I create is that then I live on an island, which is kind of next door to Portsmouth. So I leave my office, jump on, and we are literally an island. So we're cut off from the mainland, just a bridge to get over. And then I drive home 20 minutes and bang, I'm got the beach right outside. And that's my centering, that's my grounding,
Mm.
whether it's the evening time or during the daytime. And so that's my place that I bring myself back to create that balance.
That was a big motivation. Living by the water was probably an incentive
Yeah,
with the work that you do, knowing that you do hold on to all those different energies
yeah,
and spirits, and that it is good to be near water, which water is healing and calming, and it allows us to be very meditative and pensive. And I also
I don't know if you can hear me. You
scenes that
froze there.
allow for a relaxing environment, like the picture frame in the back. Can you hear
So
me now?
yeah, so you're just breaking up a little bit again.
Okay.
There we go. You're back.
I was saying that besides living by the water, I see that in your background, you have items and pictures and plants that are also very healing
Mm,
and bring in such positive
yeah,
energy in a space where you're right, can be very negative. So,
yeah,
yes, it's very, very wise of you
yeah,
to have all of that to help.
yeah. I believe that your environment. I always say this: your home should feel as if you're always on holiday.
Mm, I like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
like,
when you go away on holiday, maybe go to a hotel or something like that, and you just kind of dump everything, and it's not really a mess, but it's kind of you feel relaxed, and that's what I say a home should be. Obviously, yeah, families, other circumstances, screaming children, it may not always be relaxed that way. But
yes,
yeah.
yes. So, what is when you're working with your students? What is one of the main things or main points you want to drive home to them in order for them to become the best psychic mediums that they can be?
Well, boundaries is the main thing.
Okay.
Because when I'm working with my students, I insist on the personal growth. I always say to any of my students, if you're not prepared to grow personally and emotionally,
Mhm.
you're no good as a student for me, because we will get to a point within your psychic development that you don't have the skills to be able to work through the challenges that are going to come in. So, in order to test that, with the permission of sitters that I've worked with, I will often ask a sitter if they have interesting circumstances to come in as a guest sitter, to, if you like, to give them that exam to go, how will you handle this? How will you handle this person and these set of circumstances?
Mhm.
So, it's very important that the student that is learning how to grow their mind to develop mediumship, again, for them, boundaries, balance. Again, I often say to my students, I say it like this. It's happened quite recently because I have quite a few of them that go on paranormal investigations.
Oh.
Um, and I have one particular student, she's absolutely lovely, but she says, no, all are welcome to come and connect with me. Um, I so um, the other week I said to them, right, okay, as all are welcome to come and connect with you guys, I said, let's look at this way. What I'd like you to do when you go home tonight, I would like you to leave the front doors of your home wide open with a sign outside saying, the front door is open, all are welcome. And I'd like you to send me the photos to prove that you've actually done this. Then go to bed and, you know, let's see what happens. Then the following week, I said, nobody sent me your photos. And they all laughed nervously at me. And I went, I just proved the point. You won't leave your front door to your home open, but
Right.
you'll leave the front door to your soul wide open for anything to come in. What's
Right.
the difference? And yeah, they very quickly learned the lesson once I started pushing on, getting to leave their front door to their home open at night with a sign outside saying all are welcome.
Yes, that is a good point, Paul, that you said that to your students, because I can imagine as they're learning their psychic mediumship, there is a level of excitement that is there
Yeah,
where they want to bring in all the spirits
yeah,
because they're so eager to learn and to communicate with them.
yeah,
But you're right, at the end of the day, you do have to have boundaries, and you
yeah,
have to be careful wanting any spirit to come into your energy field.
yeah.
That's very important. So that's really great that you were able to kind of like instill that in them and use that as a great analogy. Um,
Yeah, in my teaching, I tried to bring psychology into it a little bit in order to get them to think
yes,
about their actions. I'm getting them to think all the time. Why are you actually doing this? What is your purpose for doing this? What is it that you're trying to achieve from all of this? So, and if they're thinking on those lines, then they're creating boundaries.
yes. As we near the end of this episode, I would like to ask, what is some very positive advice that you would give to any of our listeners or viewers today that want to be able to channel their psychic mediumship and want to be able to do it with a sense of balance and boundaries? How would they start?
So we're all naturally intuitive. Some people are more hypersensitive than others. And so those hypersensitives have a greater natural ability to tune in. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, from that point, I do feel it's very important to then learn from other professionals that are already and have a proven track record in using their clairvoyance, psychic abilities, mediumship, and learning from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And understanding how they work. So, not that you become a carbon copy of them, but so you're able to absorb ideas from people that have already tried and tested their own methods and they know it works for them. And it allows you then to be able to become better disciplined. And I'm not judging anybody because I know there are some people out there that are readers of any kind that haven't had that kind of formal training. Yeah. And
Yes.
they're very good at what they do. They just go, it's very raw. They just go with it and they just allow spirit to channel through them. Yep. And there are some good ones out there. Um, However, I always say learn from the professionals, see how
Mhm.
they do it, and then allow ideas. So, I mean, I went to a place called the College of Psychic Studies, which has been established in London for about 150 years.
Mhm.
It was set up for mediums by mediums, and I studied there for quite a number of years
Mhm.
as my own students studied with me, just to help me to understand, you know, those boundaries,
Yes.
and also to, you know, again, any personal issues that would that would arise from developing these links, they could be addressed in a safe environment.
Yes.
That was
Yes.
my choice. That was how I did it. It's not for everybody.
Yes. Well, wonderful. Paul, you have been such an amazing guest today. I
Yeah.
am super grateful that I got the opportunity to speak to you And for all of our listeners and viewers that are watching today, do you have any type of social media, websites, or an email that they can reach out if they're interested in getting psychic mediumship from you?
Yes, I have clients that are all over the world that I see on Zoom. The easiest way to find me there is my website, paulcissell.com. So PAULCISSELL.com. Come and find me there. I am on Facebook, so I've got my own Facebook page, Paul Cissell Psychic Medium. So you can come and follow me on that as well. It's easier to reach out to me via the website, though.
Yes. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Paul. And thank
No,
you
my
to all of
pleasure.
you viewers. Thank you to all the viewers and listeners today for joining me on another episode of the Estrella Podcast. I'm Danielle Miranda. And don't forget, if you're interested in learning more about the Estrella platform, please head over and go to estrella.chat. Thank you so much. And thank you, Paul. I appreciate everything.
No, my pleasure.
You have a great day.
You too. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye bye.